Inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmadu wa nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem ma ba'd. Today we're going to start with Surah Al-Ma'idah. And the meaning of Ma'idah is the table spread, or in Urdu we call it the stakhan, and you put food on it. This is a Makki surah, and the reasons for its name was uh, the companions of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salatu salam, they requested him for a miracle. Those who believed in him, and some of them, they asked for a miracle like, can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send down a table spread, a ma'idah, with pre-cooked food in it, full of food, so that we can eat and we can confirm or validate our belief, just like, and they presented an argument like, so Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam got a little bit upset on that, say, why, you don't you believe in it? Don't you believe in Allah? Don't you believe in the message? He said, no, no, no. Then they said, we do believe it in it, but just like Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah, oh Allah, show me how you revive a dead. And Allah said, don't you believe? And he said, no, we believe in it. I believe in it, but I just want to have a confirmation and satisfaction of my heart, something like that. So they made up something like this. And then Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, he conversed with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He prayed from Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent wahi to him that, yes, I'll send down the Ma'idah, but on a condition that if anyone who doesn't believe after that, he will get a very, very painful azab from me. And this is normally the case with miracles. Nations historically have asked for particular, had demanded for particular miracles, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed those miracles with the condition that even if after the revelation of those miracles, if someone disagree, then he will be destroyed by the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The azab will come. Because the miracles were something that were totally um, out of the world kind of a thing, that were totally that would be against the experience of anybody. So when a miracle is shown, then it's a sure sign that the person who is claiming to be a prophet is indeed a prophet, because miracle served as the identity card of a prophet. That's the purpose of the miracles. They are the identity card of the prophet, that he is indeed a prophet, and indeed he is, and indeed there is a being that is all powerful and almighty. And so because through a miracle, such feats are performed which are not possible otherwise by the people of the time, or people of any time, by using any kind of resources. So, like for example, in the time of Salih alayhi salam, the people asked that we will believe you only if from that cliff, or from that rock, you can pop out a she camel, and that she camel has to be pregnant with the baby, and as she comes out, she should immediately give birth to. And so they put all sorts of weird conditions on that, and Salih alayhi salam prayed from Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because miracle or karamat, as we talked about last time as well, they're all acts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shown on the hand of people. So miracles are acts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, outstanding feats, outstanding acts that are shown on the hand of a prophet. And karamat are outstanding acts that are shown on the hand of a salih, a pious person. So, and then they would refuse to accept it. And because it's such outstanding that no person can do it, and so if they don't accept it, then they surely invite the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then among all the previous nations, whoever rejected, whoever did not accept the message of the Prophet, even after seeing a miracle that they demanded themselves, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sunnat was that Allah wiped them off the face of the earth. Allah destroyed them with a collective adab. So This, in this case as well, they were asked, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, definitely for sure, I'll send down the ma'idah, I'll send down the tablecloth with all the food cooked and stuff, a big one that could feed all of the people. But if anyone who wouldn't accept it after that, who wouldn't accept the message, then they will be destroyed. So there is a difference of opinion of the Mufassirin whether the people, whether the miracle was indeed happened or not, whether people agreed to that or not. Some say that uh, the people went back, retreated their request, they got scared, and the Maida was never sent down. And some Mufassirin said that no, the Maida was indeed sent down, and people ate from it. And what happened, the Ma'idah, the tablecloth, was sent down with certain restrictions and instructions that you are only allowed to eat from it, but you're not allowed to save from it. Okay, you're not allowed to store the food, leftover food from the Ma'idah. You eat and then you let it go, and it's gonna go away. And some people violated that condition, and they stored the food, and obviously that was haram because it was against the instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then when they saw later on that food got that food they found the food to be rotten, unusable and unedible. And from there this that time, and of course they were Bani Israel, so Bani Israel had done similar thing in the times of Musa alayhi salam as well, when they were locked in the desert of Sina, in a particular valley called Ti, for punishment of not fighting, not doing jihad with the enemy. They were locked in there for 40 years. And during that 40 years period, they were sent down food from the heavens, man and salwa. And salwa was like a baked or cooked quail. And man was something like a dessert kind of thing. And there also they were ordered not to store anything. So have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah is sending down food today, Allah will send down food tomorrow as well, and other days as well. So that was one of their other conditions, and the people violated that condition, and they started storing the food. And when they got back to the food um to eat it, they found it to go bad. They found it had gotten bad and rotted. And Mufassirin say scholars they say that that was the time when meat actually started going bad. And there's a hadith of Rasulullah SAW in Sahih Muslim, and so because it's in Sahih Muslim, we know that it's authentic, and there's no doubt in there, where Rasulullah SAW said that close meaning is that had the Bani Israel not violated the commandment of Allah and not hidden and stored the food against the instruction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the meat would never have gotten bad in the world. From that point onwards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down this condition to the meat, that the meat left would go bad after some time. Before the violation of Bani Israel, it never happened that the meat would go bad, and it wouldn't need any cold storage or anything. So this azab, this kind of infliction on the meat and for the people, that started after the violation of Bani Israel. So the sins of the people cause problems to descend upon them, and then everybody suffers from those. Okay, so it's not like, um, and this is a surely a condition, and it clarifies, and it shows that if some people even sin, and nobody stops them from sinning, and if punishments of Allah comes, then the other people who did not get involved in it also sometimes they suffer as well, because just because of being in the company. And so it's important for people to stop open sins from being committed. Okay. Similarly, in the times of Bani Israel, when talking about when we were looking at the tafsir of Surah Al-Baqarah, one of the incidents in there was um, the people, the Bani Israel, when Musa alayhi salam left for Mount Tur to get the book Torah, and he had to stay there for 40 days. behind his back, one of the magicians called Samari, he convinced people, he made a calf out of gold, and he put some magic spell on it, and that calf started to make sound, and he said he said to people that this is Nauzubillah, your Lord, your God. And a group, so the Bani Israel at that time were divided into three groups. One group started worshipping that calf. Of course, this is like kufr. The other group, the second group, tried to stop them, and they didn't listen to them. And there was a third group who neither worshipped, neither took, neither participated in the worship, nor they tried to stop. So when Musa alayhi salam came, and then with the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, only the group that did his job of trying to prevent the people from sin, open sin, only they were the one who were safe from the punishment of Allah. The rest of the two groups both were punished. The group that actually worshipped the calf, their punishment was that they should be killed. All of them should be killed. And the group that did not worship the calf, but they made no attempt to stop them as well. They did not do dawat against the evil, against the bad. Their punishment, that why didn't you do the dawah? Why didn't you try to stop? Their punishment was that they will be the one who will kill them. So this is a duty of the whole ummah, that they try to invite people to the good, and if they see something openly, they should do something about it. And what should be done about it, it's not always that you try to stop it openly. Sometimes a person doesn't have the power to do that. So Rasulullah mentioned that there are three stages of uh, acting out in that situation. Uh, and the hadith says something like this, that man ra'a munkaran, that whoever saw something bad happening, then فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ. The first step is, or one of the steps is, that he should, if he has the ability to do so, if he has the authority to do so, then he should physically stop them from doing it, from committing that kind of a sin, open sin. Second is, فَإِلَّمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, if they don't have the authority to do so, they don't have the power to openly, physically stop the evil, then the second is, فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِلِسَانِهِ, then they should try to say something, try to convince people, use their tongue against the evil. فَإِلَّمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, and if they cannot even do that, if they find themselves that if they do it, people will cause harm to them, or people will hurt them, then فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ like they said, he said that they should consider it bad in their heart. Okay, في قلبهم. Inside the heart, they should feel bad, and they should consider at least the minimum uh, effort that they have to do is realize internally that whatever is being done is wrong, in fact. And then Rasulullah said, this is azaful iman, this is the weakest form of the iman. So these are the three, one of the three has to be done. Okay, so if we don't do any of the stuff, okay, then we are kind of like contributing to the sin itself. Okay, so if we cannot stop directly, physically stop the evil or the sin, then we must do some kind of other action. Okay, so the effort of dawat and tabligh is also kind of physically um, participating in the stopping of the evil. So because the stopping of the evil is not always directly and physically opposing it, but sometimes you stop the evil by starting something good against it. Okay, so inviting people to the good eventually helps in stopping the evil. So what is meant by فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ, when Rasulullah said one should stop with the hand, that means one should take some practical measures to it. And that practical measures involve that if they have the authority and power, then they should directly go and confront. And if they don't have the authority and power, then it's better if they don't confront, because sometimes confrontation brings even more fitna and even more problems. Then they should do some other physical measures, like starting, some religious activities, inviting people to the good, right? Like arranging talks, like arranging halaqas, and things like those. So Dawud and Tabligh goes through this way, and they invite people to halaqas, and they do dawah, and they try to connect people. And in this way, and the world has seen that lots and lots of people, their life changed because of this effort. So if anyone participates in the effort of dawah, inshallah, we hope that Allah will consider him, that person, as falling among the first category, that they're using their hand to stop the evil. They're taking action to do to physically do something, practically do something. So that was the reasons for the name of this surah, because it mentions this incident. And the name doesn't should it not necessarily have to do with the entire surah. It's never the case that entire surah is about a particular topic, which became the reason for the name of the surah. So many times it's just a few ayat, few verses, and the name is set up for because of that. So the highlights of the surah: this surah has been revealed at different times, different ayat and different verses were revealed at different times, and some of the ayat were sent down during Hudaybiyah, the Sulh Hudaybiyah, that period. Sometimes some ayat were sent down during and after the conquest of Makkah, and some during the Hajj of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Then this surah also talks about social, political, and economic issues of Muslims. It also talks about the importance of fulfilling the vows and the promises, and the punishment, or the kafara, what to do in case someone finds himself violating the promise, and so how do we compensate for that? And so there are commandments for that as well. Then there are issues mentioned in this surah related to the slaughtering of animals, and halal and haram meat and stuff. What makes a meat halal and what makes a meat haram? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outlines some of those things. And it talks about the marriage, permissibility of marriage with the people of the book, which are Ahlul Kitab, Yahud and Nasara. It also talks about some Islamic punishments, or hudud. Okay, those are called hudud. So some of the punishments which are mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those punishments are set. The governor, or the caliph or khalifa, or the qazi, they don't have a right to change those punishments. Those punishments are called hudud. For example, for zina, there is a set punishment. If it is proven that a person has committed zina, and he's married or she's married, then there is a particular set of punishment, and the person must be stoned to death. And this is set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A qazi's only duty is to make sure that he or she has actually done it. And once it's proven without a doubt, and there are certain requirements for that, then nobody in the world has the power or authority to change that punishment. Not even the Prophet of Allah, not even Rasulullah could change those punishments. Such punishments are called hudud. If it's proven that a person has actually done theft of a certain amount, then the hand must be chopped. Okay, and that person has been captured, and it's proven beyond doubt, right? Um, and so on and so forth. Those punishments which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not prescribe, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the ruler or the qazi some authority on those. Those are called ta'zirat. So hudud are those punishments. Once it's established that the person has committed such an act, and there's a hud for that Allah has prescribed, then nobody has the right and authority to change it. They have to be acted out. Ta'zirat are those punishments for which the ruler has the right to decide what to do, what punishment to do, and the ruler, if he wishes, he could forgive that as well and let it go. So there are mention of some legal punishments of hudud here, and then this surah also talks about the story of Habil and Qabil, the two sons of Adam alayhi salam, the which were among the first two boys, and how one of them killed the other and what happened. And so this is the this is more or less the highlights of the surah. So let's move forward with that. So this it starts with um, commanding Muslims to honor their commitments, and also talks about that while someone is in ihram for Hajj or Umrah, then they are not allowed um, to hunt in their ihram. All right, and ihram basically for Hajj or Umrah is the name of the niyat, the intention. People often mistake the two unstitched piece of cloth that a person is wearing, and in general terms, they are known as ihram as well. Okay, but they are not the actual ihram. Ihram is the name of the niyat of a person when he makes an intention that so and so, some person makes intention that I'm going to do Hajj and Umrah, and I make an intention for Hajj or Umrah, then that intention brings a person into a state, and that state is called the state of ihram. Okay, and the word ihram is from derived from haram. That means that state makes certain things haram on it. He some halal things are made haram while he's in that state. He cannot use fragrance in that. Okay, in that state, he cannot cover his face, or his, even for men, his head. For women, they cannot cover their face. Nobody can use fragrance, and similarly they cannot hunt or kill anybody in that state, and so on and so forth, and there's a whole list of them. So things that are usually halal are made haram because of the intention made by a person who is going for Hajj or Umrah, and that intention brings a person in that state. Well, and another of the haram things is a person cannot wear stitched clothes. So any time they violate any of those conditions, then they have to pay a penalty, which is called dam, which means a small animal is sacrificed, a goat or a sheep is sacrificed as a penalty, as a compensation for that. And sometimes, if the violation is big, they have to sacrifice a whole cow or a whole camel, and that's called budna. All right. So because of that, the restrictions of the intentions of ihram, a person has to wear unstitched cloth. All right. And wearing two pieces is a sunnah. Okay. So a person, and then after doing certain actions, after performing the umrah, certain the farais of umrah when they are done, or the farais of the hajj when they're done, a person comes out of the state of ihram. But they may still be wearing those two pieces of cloth, but they are technically out of ihram and they can do anything they want. All right. So what I'm trying to nail down over here is the two pieces of cloth are not really ihram. They have to be worn because a person is in ihram, is in a state of ihram. So even when he leaves the state of haram, he can continue to have those two pieces, but technically he's out of ihram, something like that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying over here that when you are in a state of ihram, you are not allowed to hunt. And then there is an important rule Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ, that when someone asks you for help or cooperation, then before you commit to help and before you commit to cooperate with him, make sure that what he is asking for is halal, because you're not allowed to cooperate anybody in haram things. If someone asks you to, na'uzubillah, kill somebody, and that killing is not haq, is not is right, is a sin, you are not allowed to participate in that. Otherwise, you'll be considered equally responsible for that action. All right. Similarly, if someone is trying to seek your cooperation in harming somebody, and that harm should not reach that person, then you're not allowed to cooperate in there. Similarly, in anything, breaking any commandment, any act that is violating any commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're not allowed to help or cooperate. We're allowed to just excuse ourselves out of it. So make sure that that act is bir, that is piety, and is a good act of is goodness, and act of piety. Only then we can participate in. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about 10 types of haram animals. And حرمت عليكم الميتة. So one of them is a dead animal, and a dead in Urdu we call it murdar. In Arabic it's called maita, and in English we can probably use the word dead for it. And animals go dead anyways when you sacrifice them or slaughter them. But by dead animal, it means the animal died before we had the opportunity to slaughter it properly according to Islamic command, Islamic procedures. So that animal is a maita, or murdar in Urdu, or dead in English. And that means it has already become haram. There's nothing we can do. If an animal has died before we could slaughter it with proper procedure, Islamic procedure, there is nothing that can be done. It's unusable. The meat cannot be used by humans, by Muslims. And Muslims are not allowed to give that meat to non-Muslims. Even though for non-Muslims, it's okay. They don't have any issues consuming it. Well, we're not allowed to give it to them or give her as a gift to them, thinking that, let it not go to waste. And these non-Muslims, they eat anyways, all of these things, and they don't have any issues. Well, we are not allowed to do that, because Muslims are not are here in the world to do halal things, not haram things. Okay? And because haram is all those we must understand that the depth of the meaning of the word haram and halal, and farz and wajib and haram and makruh tahrimi. These are Islamic technical words and religious terminologies. The real meaning of what is farz? Farz means something you have to do, it's an obligatory act. You must do it, and if you don't do it, you're committing a sin. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made those actions obligatory, which were so much beneficial for mankind, that if they leave them out, it will harm them. Those actions are categorized in religious terminologies as farz. You cannot leave those things, because leaving those actions will hurt you, and you're not allowed to hurt yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent the deen or guidelines or commandments for our benefit. Allah doesn't seek any benefit. Allah doesn't need any benefit out of those things. Because Allah knows, Allah is our creator, because Allah knows how we are created and what is the nature of our creation, what can harm us and what can benefit us, Allah has given those guidelines in the form of a book, in the form of a deen to us, like a user's manual that comes with any appliance we buy or any piece of equipment we buy, that tells us, what can damage it and how to use it properly so that it increases its life. Similarly, this is our Quran is our users, Quran Hadith is our user's manual for us. So consider anything first to be so useful, and leaving that action to be harmful for us, that Allah has mandated for us. And in in real life, I can give an example. In traffic laws, for example, the putting on a seat belt while you're driving, that it's so much beneficial, and not having a seat belt can actually kill a person if the car crashes, that the government made it mandatory for people to put on a seat belt. And if the cops find out, if the cops catch anybody not with a seat belt, then they can actually give a fine and a ticket and penalize the person. And the person can ask, look, um, if I didn't put a seat belt and if I run into an accident, my not putting a seat belt is not gonna hurt anybody else. I'm not violating anybody's right. Okay, I'll be the one who will suffer only. Okay, it's not like if I don't put a seat belt, then I will hurt others. In case of a crash, it's only me that will suffer. So why do you care? I don't want to put a seat belt. And the government is going to say, you are not allowed to hurt yourself. Okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cares much more than any government. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says you're not allowed to hurt yourself. So things that are so beneficial that leaving them can be so risky, those items are categorized as farais of among the commandments. Things that if we do can put us at a great risk and danger, those are categorized as haram. So it's mandatory not to do those things. Farais are things mandatory to do. Leaving them is harmful and dangerous. Haram are things that if you do them, they are harmful and dangerous. So it's mandatory not to do them. So these are for benefit. And so similarly, uh, dead animals, dead meat. Similarly, blood. Okay. Um, or dam. Dam means blood. That also is haram. So these are things that are harmful to the human body and they're harmful to the human soul. So insan is composed of three things: mind, body, and soul. Okay. So whatever we consume, it affects all three of them. And all three of them have a totally different compositions. Body is made out of dust and it's made out of from it's raised from earth and earthly things, and so it derives all its necessities from earth. Okay. uh, Ruh is nur, is energy, is light, and it's it derives its nourishment from heavenly acts of zikr of Allah, of salah, and all of those things, and fulfilling the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It positively affects the soul and ruh. And then there's a mind, there's a mind that does the thinking. This is a totally different kind of thing. And the acts that benefit it are the right set of beliefs, aqaid. These are commands given for the mind and for the thought process of a man. But although these three are totally different, the ruh doesn't need food, doesn't feed on meat or vegetables or stuff or tangible things. Similarly, the mind doesn't require all of these things. But because these three are bonded together in the form of a living human, they are linked to each other and one affects the other. So if we consume haram things, those haram things will damage the body as well, damage the soul as well, and damage the mind as well. It will affect everything. It's going to pollute the thinking. It's going to pollute and make the soul and the ruh dirty as well and heavy. So um, no matter what science say, no matter what scientists say, no matter what their research say, insan insan's knowledge is defective. It's not complete. Science is a science. Science is something that is a name of a set of knowledge that is discovered and created by man himself. All right. So it's the name. Science is the name of the discovery of um, its surroundings. That as man discovers the surrounding by experiments and observations, they note those things down. They form theories and then they do experiments. It's the discovery process of mankind, of man and of men of intellect, that is the name given to it is science, because by nature man is defective. The intellect is not perfect is defective. Anything they come up with is also defective. And this is clear because if you look at how scientific progress is done, they form theories and then they reject theories. Then they form new theories and then they reject those theories. And then that's how they work. Every time they create a theory, it's a hypothesis or speculation of how things work. Later on, they do some experiment, they find, oh, we didn't realize that the new research shows that the previous theory was defective, and so we have modified, and that's how progress is made. So, so science always progresses by negating itself. And this is the nature of man and the intellect of man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. Allah's knowledge is perfect. There's no deficiencies. What Allah says is 100% true. It never changes. So when Allah says this is wrong, then this is wrong. Allah says this is harmful and it's damaging to your body and soul and your mind. Then this is damaging no matter if a man's research shows it's not, then it's not worth comparing against the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not worthy at all against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandment. At one time, they used to say, "Oh, mother's milk is harmful for the baby," and so they started artificial milk, baby milk. And later on, the research say, "No, no, 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 mother's milk is extremely beneficial." And then they turn a totally 180 degrees U-turn. They took a U-turn, and then say, "No, you cannot." Some hospitals uh, forbid the bringing of any artificial milk in the hospital, in those maternity wards and stuff. So they keep on changing their views. All right, we don't trust on their views. We trust on the teachings of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the teachings and the commandments of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. So Allah says, "Al-Maita, a dead, is harmful." Muslims are sent in this world to distribute khair and goodness. We are not here to distribute sickness. We are not here to distribute the sickness of the body or the sickness of the heart or the sickness of the mind. All of these are affected with haram things. Even though we may not realize, even though science doesn't understand all of those things, science doesn't even accept the presence of ruh or soul, but it doesn't matter. They're still not able to answer what happens when a person dies. Everything is intact, but yet he's no longer alive. He's pronounced as dead, and what is missing, nobody knows what is missing. Well, Allah says ruh is missing. That's it. Whether you accept it or not, whether your research shows it or not, whether your equipments detect it or not, doesn't make any difference at all. So for this hikmah and for this reason, if we have something haram, we are not allowed to give it to non-Muslims just because they eat it or it's okay with them. Well, if they do it by themselves, that's okay, but we will throw it away. All right, we're gonna throw it away. So similarly, so wadamu, blood is also no is haram, and by blood means that viscous, dense fluid, yeah, the bright pinkish viscous fluid that comes out of when you of the animal's arteries when we slaughter the animal. Okay, that dense and viscous fluid, that is haram. So I've seen when I was in America and I used to go to the slaughterhouse for slaughtering, I've actually seen non-Muslims come and when they slaughter the animal, they actually collect the blood in the bowl and they I don't know they take it and they cook their food with it or drink it or whatever it is. It's haram. So it's dangerous. It's harmful. Okay, so that viscous fluid that has the tendency to clot. This is by technical, by religious, by Islamic definition, blood which is haram. And this, which is why the slaughtering process must be such that there are 4 passages that must be cut. At least 3 must be cut from there, but 4 is better. The 2 jugular veins, okay, the arteries over here, that are directly, and the big ones that directly are connected to the heart. and so the blood must come out from them, so that the meat is as clear from the blood as possible. And then the passage for the food and the passage for the breath, for the air, and both are in the center. So uh, when we put a when we uh, use the knife to cut the throat, the two passages of air and food, they get cut automatically, because that's where we put the knife there. And then we have to do an extra care to make sure that the knife goes sideways, front and back, so that the two the big main arteries are cut, and we see the blood oozing out from them with pressure. And we must leave the animal lying and moving in that condition. The more the animal moves, that also helps in throwing the blood out. It is makruh. It is not liked to cut the entire neck away. The spinal cord must remain intact. Okay, if somebody cuts off the spinal cord as well and cuts the neck off totally before the animal dies completely, um, it will not make the meat haram, but it's not liked. It's makruh, and that means it still will be can be harmful, because when you cut the spinal cord, we know now from whatever understanding we have about how the mind and the body works and the brain works. The brain commands to the different organs, and the way the commands are transferred is through the spinal cord. Okay, so if the spinal cord is intact, the brain is still signaling the heart to keep on pumping, and faster and faster and faster. And the more the heart pumps, the more the blood comes, gets pushed out of the body, and it cleans the meat out of this haram thing. And if we chop off the whole neck, that cuts the command passage, and the heart will eventually stop, and whatever blood comes out, that comes out. So there's the chances are it will still leave some blood in there, which still will not be pronounced as haram, but it's not going to be healthy meat. Okay, given that, now that being said, there once the animal it becomes totally cold, okay, then you can take a skin off. And it's not allowed to skin off an animal or cut any of its limb while there's still some life or movement in that animal. Is haram. It's not allowed. And let me say that over here as well, that if an animal, while an animal is alive, if any portion of it or any limb of that animal is cut off, that portion of meat or limb becomes haram, because the animal hasn't died yet properly. Okay, that being said, once the animal becomes cold completely and skinned off, and limbs are cut and portions of meat are made and stuff, and like when you go to the butcher, for example, and the butcher gives you put the meat in a shopping bag and gives it to you, and you come home and you find that on the way it leaves some watery red liquid, okay, which we call that also blood. But that blood is not haram, because that blood is a very watery liquid. Okay, if you leave the meat for some time, or even the minced meat or qima that we call in Urdu, or minced meat, if you leave it for a while, it starts releasing some water, because the body is composed of water, and when the water comes out, it's usually red in color. It has some aspects of blood in it, but unanimously, the jurists, the fuqaha, they say that blood is not haram. So you don't have to worry about that. You can cook along with that, and it's perfectly okay. What the haram one was the viscous dense fluid that would, if you leave, it will clot. And this blood, the watery liquid form, is not going to clot. It doesn't have the clotting ability. And then وَلَحْمُ الْخِنْزِيرِ, the swine, the flesh of swine, or the meat of swine is haram. وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ, and all of those animals who are sacrificed, um, who are not sacrificed with Allah's name, or they're sacrificed using name of other than Allah, like shirk kind of thing, slaughtered on in the name of someone else other than Allah. or on the name of idols or some, all of those are haram totally. Even though the slaughtering process is exactly that of Islamic, but if the name of Allah is not taken intentionally, if a Muslim leaves out the name of Allah, it makes the animal haram. If a Muslim is slaughtering and he or she forgets taking the name of Allah, then that forgetfulness is um, uh, is forgiven. So the meat in that case is halal. But if a person does not intentionally take the name of Allah, that also makes the meat haram. Um, and then if someone deliberately takes somebody else's name, that obviously that is haram as well. Similarly, one of the things not mentioned over here, but we know from hadith and stuff that a person has to be a Muslim of right aqidah in order for its slaughter or zabiha to be halal. If someone is not a non-Muslim, his zabiha is not his slaughtering is not a zabiha. It's not halal. No matter how exact and how accurate Islamic procedure they use, they have to be the slaughterer must be a Muslim with the right aqidah, right set of aqidah. For example, if a Qadiani they slaughter someone, it's haram. And most of the Shia, they're also considered haram. They're also considered non-Muslim, so their slaughtering is haram as well. Wal والمنخنقة, and all those animals who are killed by strangling. Okay, so they are also haram. والموقوذة, someone that is killed by a violent blow. Those are mawquza animals. Okay, so they're not slaughtered, but if someone hit an animal's head by a stone or something and that dies, that is a mawquza, is haram because the blood did not come out. Um, Similarly, from this exactly, uh, the ruling is derived that when you go out for hunting and you use a gun, the bullets actually, and if you shoot an animal or a bird, and that animal or bird they die before you get the chance to slaughter, and that is haram as well. Sometimes I hear people say that, say Bismillah Rahman Rahim before you shoot and it'll be halal. It's not going to make it halal if you are using a gun and bullet, because the way the bullet kills someone, or it penetrates the skin by the pounding action. Okay, and that makes the animal mawquz if it dies, because it's a blow. The bullet does not have a cutting edge. It does not cut through the skin. It breaks and tears the skin by blow, violent blow. Okay, because if you take a bullet in your hand and if you rub the skin with the tip of the bullet, it doesn't have a cutting edge. It's not going to cut the skin, right? So that is mawquza. But if you shoot the animal and when you reach the animal, you find that the animal is still breathing, then quickly slaughter the animal by reciting the name of Allah, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and doing the right method of slaughtering. Then it's halal for you to consume the meat. However, if you're using a bow and an arrow to kill, okay, to hunt, and that arrow must have a cutting edge. Okay, it must be sharpened enough so that it's a cutting edge. And then if that arrow hits the animal and it pierces the skin, that is considered as cutting action, and it causes the blood to flow and the animal dies, then this is halal. Provided before you have let the arrow go, you say Bismillah Rahman Rahim. And if that arrow also is not sharpened properly, then that also is a blowing action, and that also will make the animal haram if he dies. Well, mutaraddiyatu, and those animals have that died because they have taken a fall from a height, or one natihatu, those animals that die because they hit each other through their horns, and that kills each other, or they kill one of them or whatever, that is also haram. وَمَا أَكَلَ السَّبُعُ إِلَّا مَا زَكَيْتُمْ. And those animals are also haram which have been partly eaten by a wild animal or a predator, and they died because maybe a lion or wolf attacked an animal and killed it, and they took meat from there. That is also haram. Unless you find that animal alive to a certain, it has been attacked by a wild animal, you reach and then you scare off the wild animal, and then you reach the uh, the animal, the prey, and you find it's still breathing, it's still alive, and then you slaughter it properly, then it's halal. And similarly, وَمَا ذُبْحَ عَلَى النُّصُبِ, all of those animals that are slaughtered in any other kind of religious worship places other than Islam, they're also haram. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that uh, taking, you know, drawing arrows or using any form of actions to determine the luck, whether there's luck in there or not, that is also haram. Okay. Then there's uh, the verse in there that was revealed during the Hajj of Rasulullah, the last Hajj of Rasulullah, the only Hajj of Rasulullah. Al-Yawma, and that was revealed in Arafat. Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islam madina. That today I've completed your deen for you and completed my blessings for you. And Islam is the name we have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has suggested and chosen for us. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, tayyib things are halal, pak things are halal, and rest everything else is haram. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the food and women of Ahlul Kitab, that the food of Ahlul Kitab is halal as well. By food means the slaughtered meat of Ahlul Kitab. So there is some details in there. What it means is, if a person is among the Yahud or among the Nasara, and that person is following the teachings of their religion, whatever that is, and then the meat, and when they slaughter the meat, they slaughter it according to the conditions of Islam. And they take the name of Allah. They slaughter it in the name of Allah. They mention the name of Allah because it clearly says in the Quran that if Allah's name is not taken, that meat is haram. Only then the meat of Ahlul Kitab will be considered halal. Those conditions do not are not fulfilled these days. Most of the people in the Western countries, they are not from Ahlul Kitab, and this is a misunderstanding a lot of people run into, even many scholars run into, okay, because they have not visited those places. They don't know how they are. They believe that they are Christians or Jews. They're not Christians, or Jews. Okay, if most people in the Western world, they are these days, they're not following any religion. They're atheists or they're antagonists. Okay, they don't care about the deen, whatever deen it is. Um, they are. If you talk to them, when I was there, when I would interact with those people, I would ask them sometimes, what religion do you follow? And you have to be very careful asking them because they don't like preaching, and if it sounds like you're trying to preach, then they don't like it. So I would ask people, and often I would get a response like this: "What religion do you follow?" And they would reply something like, "I was raised as a Catholic. I was raised as whatever." So, and then I would ask them more specifically, "Okay, but you were raised as so and so, but what do you follow exactly now?" And then that person would say, "I don't follow anything." All right. So it's their personal, once anyone becomes baligh, or once anyone reaches puberty, it's not how that person is raised that makes a decisive thing. It's what they believe is the decisive thing. They might have been raised in a very, very pious Christian or Jew or even Muslim family. But if they don't believe in Islam properly, they are no longer Muslims. Similarly, they're no longer Ahlul Kitab. Most of the people now in the Western world, they are not Ahlul Kitab. Remember that. And most of the commercial meat they are produced, they're not produced according to the teachings of Ahlul Kitab. Their slaughtering method is not that of Islam. In the times when these verses were revealed, the Yahud and Nasara, they would take the name of Allah because they were all uh, living in Medina. They were all speaking Arabic language. Even the mushrikeen would believe in Allah. Even the mushrikeen would take the name of Allah. As mentioned in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, uh, if you ask these idol worshippers or mushrikeen, who created the heavens and the earth and the mountains and this and this? They will answer you, Allah did. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran to Rasulullah, that they know that Allah created all of those things, even though they are mushrik clear. They are not Ahlul Kitab, the mushrik of Makkah. They believed in Allah and they would take the name of Allah. Okay, so the Nasara in Yehuda of that time in Medina, they would slaughter in the Islamic way properly, and they would take the name of Allah on their slaughter. Okay, if this so this is one of the conditions. These are some of the conditions. First of all, if a person must be following the must be believing in the aqaid of Christianity or Judaism, whatever that is. Of course, the Christians are also, for most part, they're also mushrik, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have categorized them separately from mushrikeen, and they are called Ahlul Kitab. And it's permitted to eat their zabiha if it follows these conditions. First of all, that person must be following or must believe in the aqaid or in the teachings of the Christianity or Jewish religions. Secondly, they must follow the methodology of Islamic slaughtering, which is cutting with a sharp knife and cutting the throat. And at least out of three of these four passages that I just talked about, the passage of air, the passage of food, and the two big arteries over here on the side, at least three of them gets cut. And third, they must take the name of Allah. All right. If they don't, then their zabiha is not halal. So as I said, most of the people now, they are not Ahlul Kitab, and so don't ever get confused in these things. You cannot eat the meat. Be very, very careful. One thing you must understand, we all must understand, is that you must exercise great caution in meat, particularly. There's a there's a rule for meat which is separate from the rules of other edibles or other food items. For anything other than food items, anything other than meat, any other food item other than meat, the basic ruling is it's all halal unless or until you find evidence to prove otherwise. Okay, so it's to be taken as halal. For meat, the fundamental ruling is it's haram unless are you are sure and you investigate and you get a surety that it's halal. By default, a meat is going to be considered haram, and all other food items are considered to be halal by default. That's the ruling on that. All right. So similarly, now we talk about the women of Ahlul Kitab. Okay. So again, it has to be condition in the condition is, and the one of them is wal muhsanat. Okay. Um, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a condition that those should be they should not be involved in sinful actions, in zina or other things, or in fuhush acts, in vulgar acts. So that has to be a condition. Second, they should be following the the beliefs of the religion of Christianity or Judaism. Okay, it should not be that they say that I was raised as it, but I don't follow anything or I don't care about anything. Then they are not Ahlul Kitab. They're not Christian or they're not Jew. Then marriage with them is not permissible unless you make them Muslim first. Once they accept Islam, then things change already. when they're no longer Ahlul Kitab or something, then they become Muslim. Uh, right. So these are the couple of conditions of marriage with Ahlul Kitab. Given given that being said, it's still not preferable to marry an Ahlul Kitab and leave Muslim women. It's not preferable. It's um, kind of given as the last resort. If someone is desperate and someone is not able to find a believing woman to marry, okay, a Muslim woman to a Muslim woman to marry, then in the last resort, this is the case that they're allowed to, if they find an Ahlul Kitab lady from Jews and Christians following the teachings, they can marry that. But this is not preferred. The preferable thing is you convert them to Muslim and then you marry. And particularly in, okay, on in those times, there were conditions such that the Muslims, the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, they were very practicing Muslims, and they would consider da'wat to be their foremost duties, and they realized that they have to invite people to Islam, because if anyone dies on anything other than Islam, they are forever and ever into Jahannam. They are losers. So how can a man marry an Ahlul Kitab at that time? I'm talking about in the times of Sahaba, in the times of Tabi'in. It was not possible that a man, a Muslim man, a Sahabi, a Tabi'i would marry an Ahlul Kitab and then let her be the way she is. Because that would mean sh- he is leaving his family, his wife, to go to eternal Jahannam. Allah says, you must take care of your family and must make sure that they enter Jannah and must make sure they follow the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاسْتَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. Allah is saying to Rasulullah as well, command your family members to perform salat. That means follow the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it would have been a sin. It would be a sin for a husband to marry an Ahlul Kitab and let her be like that for her life and not make effort on her iman, and let her die as a non-Muslim. That means he has benefited from her and then didn't care about her future. So it's a sin. So at that time, the environment was such strong environment of iman that anyone who would become part of that environment would not remain a non-Muslim for a long time. Very soon, the barakat and the spirituality of the environment would affect the heart of that person, man or women, and they would convert to Islam. And that was one of the hikmah and wisdom in permitting Muslims to marry Ahlul Kitab women, because they had already received the similar messages in the past. It's just that they tempered their deen, they modified the deen, but they are still, many of the stories of the prophets, they are the same, and you find in Injil, in Bible, and in Torah. Although they've been, there some things may be different, and of course, but they're not totally alien to those stuff. So it's easy for them to convert to Islam as opposed to someone who is not following any deen at all or something totally different like idol worshipping or so. And so this was one of the hikmah that Muslim men will marry such women and then convert them, and then the number of people converting to Islam will increase. Also, because women are supposed to be subordinate to their husbands, they're supposed to listen to their husband and follow them. And it was also expected that the children, even if a woman or wife would refuse to convert to Islam, the children would be following the deen of the father, because the father is supposed to be the qawwam, the head, or the managing partner of the house, or the leader of the house. Okay, and the tarbiyah of the children is primarily his responsibility. So he will make sure that children will follow Islam in whatever way he can. If the mother refuses to accept Islam after all attempts. But today, circumstances have changed a whole lot. Okay. And first of all, men are no longer proper men, right? They don't seem to have a control on the household as the men were expected to. The final decision, many in the households, the final decisions are made by the lady of the house. And even in non-Muslim countries, women have been given a lot more rights than actually they deserved. And in Muslim countries also, we're following the footsteps of the kuffar, people who are deciding, who are who are established, who are the judges and the lawyers and the judges in the court and the justices, chief justices. They don't have the understanding of the deen. They are not practicing Muslims, unfortunately, in Muslim countries as well, in Pakistan or similar countries. So when they make a decision, if the wife and husband get separated, many times the children are given to the women. Okay. So if they are non-Muslims, then they will raise the children to be non-Muslims. Particularly in Western countries, almost always young children are given to ladies and to mothers. And so over there, the man of the house does not have much control and much say in upbringing the children. If the woman of the house is not Muslim, then good luck. So because of this, some ulama who are exposed, who know these things, who are living in the Western countries, who are seeing the issues, they have given the fatwa that today it's not allowed, it's not permissible to marry Ahlul Kitab unless you make them Muslim first. Because they're seeing the hikmah, the reason for which the permissibility was given, they no longer exist. So, in any case, this is one must avoid marrying the Ahlul Kitab unless or until you make effort on them to convert them to Muslim first, and this is the best of the measure. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala an, and this was talking about the halal, the meat of the Ahlul Kitab. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala an said about one of the tribes of Christians, Bani Taghlab, and say لا تأكلوا من ذبائح نصارى بني تغلب فإنهم لم يتمسكوا من النصرانية بشيء إلا شربهم الخمر خمر يعني what it means is that this particular tribe of Christianity don't eat their zabiha, don't eat their meat, because they are not following any of the teachings of Christianity. They haven't taken anything from Christianity except the permissibility of the khamar, of the sharab, of alcohol. Other than that, they don't follow anything of their teachings. So from here we learn that the Ahlul Kitab must follow their teachings. Okay, if they're not, then they're not really fallen to that. Similarly, about marrying the Ahlul Kitab, the women of the Ahlul Kitab, there is the statement of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala that he stopped the Sahaba from marrying Ahlul Kitab because of the exact same reason, that the preference should be given to believing the Muslim woman. And one of the Hudayfa radiallahu anh, in the city of Madain, he married a Jewish woman. When Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala found out during his Khilafat, then he wrote a letter and says that by the time, as soon as you get my letter, divorce that woman immediately. Okay. And Sayyidina Hudayfa, he debated a little bit. He argued with Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh. But Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh was a man of great wisdom and firasat, amazing understanding of the deen. So Hudayfa radiallahu anh, he argued. He says, Amirul Mu'minin, why are you asking me to divorce her? Is it haram to marry Ahlul Kitab? And Sayyidina Umar in response said, I instruct you strongly that after you read my letter, you don't put the letter down before you put the letter down, you should divorce. You must divorce the Jewish lady that you have married. And I'm afraid that if you will set a precedence, and other Muslims also will start marrying the Jewish and the Nasara because of their beauty, um, and their attractiveness, right? When because they are not Muslims. They don't cover themselves. They dress themselves in attractive, revealing dresses, attracting men with their beauty, their hair, and then everything. While Muslim women are ordered to cover themselves, so they don't come in front of the non-mahram, so they don't know about how they are, the beautiful or not. They are seeing non-Muslim Ahlul Kitab ladies revealing themselves, and so they get attracted. And this is the fitrah of man. So Sayyid Umar was very, very wise. He says, if you will set a precedence if you do that, and then there will be who will marry the Muslim women if all Muslim men started marrying Ahlul Kitab. Okay, so and Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah also gave the same fatwa that priority must be given to marrying Muslim women, and only out of extreme needs is it allowed, just like it is allowed to eat haram meat or haram drinks. If a person is about to die, if a person is in such a condition that puts his life to stake, and if he doesn't consume the haram, he will die. Only the amount that will save his life is permissible in that case. Similarly, in the last resort, it's allowed to marry such women, but it's definitely not something that's preferred. And I hope people understand that. And then the ayat about the tayammum and wuzu and also all of that is mentioned. And there's the famous ayat that talks about the faraiz of wuzu. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم. So it talks about in there that when you make intention for praying salat, you must do wuzu, and the wuzu is فاغسلوا وجوهكم, you wash your face. So that's one of the farz, one of the obligatory things. وأيديكم, you wash فاغسلوا أيديكم, you wash your hands. إلى المرافق, up till the elbows, up till and including the elbows. Wamsahu bi ru'usikum, and you do masah of your heads. Okay, and masah means you wet your hands, you shake off the water, and then you wipe your wet hands on your head. And wiping on top of the cap is not permissible. You must wipe your head and your hair. Wa arjulakum ila al-ka'bayn, and this word is tied with faghsilu, that you must wash your feet, not masah of the feet, but washing the feet ila al-ka'bayn, up till and including the ankles. Okay, and so because it clearly says you must wash your feet, that's why in wuzu, masah over the socks is not permissible. Over regular socks is not permissible. Then why do we permit masah over leather socks? Okay, so we say that the Quran has a higher uh, is a bigger priority, higher priority over hadith. So when something is clearly mentioned in Quran and there is no difference of opinion on that, then hadith cannot overtake it. Okay, so because in Quran it says that wudu involves washing the feet, therefore all kind of masah on the socks is impermissible. Any kind of socks. This thing clearly forbids, clearly mandates that feet must be washed for wudu. And if you're wearing socks, you must take it off and you wash your feet. That's it. You cannot wipe over the socks because it talks about washing the feet and khalas, and this is the final. Unless or so if the hadith says do masa over the socks, then that is not taken over Quran. They cannot bypass Quran. That cannot uh, overtake the Quran. Quran has a higher value over hadith. Unless or until, unless or until the hadith is such a strong that it reaches to the status of mutawatir, and and I talked about mutawatir in maybe last couple of in some previous uh, days, that when a hadith reaches such a level of authenticity, that's called hadith al-mutawatir. That means in every time period there are so many people narrating that hadith that it it removes the chance that anyone would have misinterpreted that hadith. Okay, so there are two things about hadith that we must keep in mind before we start to act on them. First of all, their their sanad should be strong. Okay, uh, the rawi, the narrators in the chain of narration, all of them must be truthful and all of them must be strong. That, and second, we must we must be clear and we must be sure that there was no difference of opinion about its interpretation, its meaning. Everybody understood the meaning in the same way. It That means it's not confusing. Okay, so these two things must be established. So a mutawatir hadith is one of those hadiths for which there are so many narrators in every time period that it removes both objections from it. For first of all, we don't need to validate the sanad because there are so many people narrating it that there's no chance that all of the people could lie at the same time or could forget at the same time and make mistake at the same time. It's just not possible. Similarly, there is no possibility of misinterpretation of that hadith as well. So everybody, so when you look at the collection of hadiths, we find that there are two types of hadiths that talk about masa over the socks. And one of the hadith, it talks about masa over leather socks. And the other of the hadith talks about masa over regular cotton socks. But then we compare it with Quran and we say, what about comparing with Quran? And so the hadith that talks about masa over leather socks happens to be a hadith of mutawatir category. A hadith of mutawatir category becomes so powerful that it comes at the same level as it is treated at the same level of Quran. And that hadith can actually make amendments in the commandments set by Quran. Okay, that is a rule of fiqh, and there is no difference of opinion on that. All four fuqaha, they agree on that. Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi, Imam Hanbal, and Imam Malik. A mutawatir hadith which for which there is no difference of opinion about its interpretation, it becomes as powerful as the verse of Quran, because Rasulullah SAW came to explain the tafsir of Quran. The ahadith are the tafsir of Quran. And Rasulullah wahi on Rasulullah, the hadith also is part of the wahi of Rasulullah. As much as Quran is wahi, hadith is also wahi. Okay, and whatever Rasulullah say, that is to be taken as the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the thing is, we need to be sure that what Rasulullah said there was no difference of opinion, because by the time it reached us, there are a number of people involved in the chain. So we need to make sure that before we put it at the same category, at the same level as the Quran, we need to be sure the strength of that hadith. That all the people in the chain of narration, they are strong, and the hadith is so much there has so many narrators in every era that there is no confusion about the strength of the chain of narration as well. And also the fuqaha have no difference of opinion as to what it really means, the interpretation of hadith. So it turns out that the hadith that talks about masa over the leather socks, it falls it under the category of mutawatir hadith. And also no one has a difference of opinion about it, what it means. Okay, they all agree on that. And so, and the hadith that talks about masa over cotton socks, there are just a couple of narrations, and that's it. The mutawatir, it's very, very far away from mutawatir. It's very, very far, very, very much below the level of mutawatir. There are just very, very few, and it falls under the category of called khabr wahid. And khabr wahid has to be taken with great precaution and with great care, and lots of rules have to be applied on it before we can extract any hukum of Allah from there. Okay, so this is why the fuqaha, they say that the real command is washing the feet, but hadith mutawatira is at the same level of Quran, and so from we know that Rasulullah also permitted doing masa over leather socks, and so leather socks and the likes of leather socks are okay to do masa. But if anyone does masa over cotton socks, that wudu is invalid according to all the fuqaha. There is no difference of opinion. Only in today's modern day we find certain misguided people or misguided who call themselves scholars and or who are treated by people as scholars, but they are misguided ones. They have deviated from this ijma of the ummat. And this is by ijma of the ummat that only the leather socks and anything that is similar to that of the leather, that has a similar characteristics, can be allowed for masa over it. Otherwise, if anyone does masa over regular polyester socks or cotton socks or anything, then their wuzu is invalid, and people don't care about their salat anymore. They are so relaxed about these restrictions because, and the reason is we don't believe. We Had we really believed in Allah and really believed in the judgment day and really believed in coming alive after death and being accountable for our actions, we would have been very, very careful. Okay, so if someone says it's allowed, you know, I present this intellectual argument that okay, if someone says it's allowed, okay, precaution or taqwa says that we leave away some of the doubtful things so that we don't risk our ibadat of our whole life. Okay, if so many people are saying it's haram, it's not allowed, and some people are saying it's allowed. Allowed doesn't mean it's mandatory. Nobody is giving the fatwa. Those who say masa over regular socks is allowed, they are not saying it's mandatory. They're only saying it's permissible. While there is a big, while all the ummat up till now, all the fuqaha up till now are saying it's haram. So what does common sense dictates? Common sense dictates one should be very, very careful, and one should avoid all of the doubtful things and leave it away. When the majority of the ummah have already, up till now, everybody has rejected masa over regular socks. Only the current time is seeing some scholars who have deviated from the right path, and they are risking their ibadat and they're risking everybody's ibadat. It's exactly the following the hadith of those that of the Rasulullah that says the ilm will be lifted up, and then people will not find, they will not look for and they will not find righteous ulama, and then they will turn to the ignorant people and make them their leaders and imams, and they will ask them questions, they will not have answers, and they will not have the knowledge, they will give wrong verdicts and wrong fatwa, they will and misguide themselves and others. This is exactly what's happening. So this salah is the most important ibadat and one of the first things that we'll be asked about on the day of Qiyamah, and one should be very, very careful about that. Okay, so all right, and then all right, so just quickly finish, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about how the Jews broke their commitment with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and again, their actions are their wrong actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inform us about how they what kind of bad they did. And and come to think of it, these were the people, they never honored their commitment to Allah. How in the world can we think that they will honor any commitments with us at the international political level? And we have seen many times, I talked about that as well. They have time and time again broken their commitments and broken their contracts, and then still nobody takes a lesson from history, nobody takes a lesson from Quran. And I'm talking about the Muslim rulers of the time. And they keep on believing in them to save their governments and to take material benefits. And the Yahud and Nasara of today, on the which are the Western nations, whether they really believe in Judaism or Christianity, or they are just atheist or whatever, they're still Western nations, come under all of this label. They, as soon as their purpose is fulfilled, they discard all of their Muslim agents, and they never honor their promises that they've made to them. And the history shows all of that, and Quran tells that we don't take lessons. And Allah says the Christians also did not honor their commitments. And the Jews, then Allah talked about when they were ordered to fight, they refused to fight, they refused to follow the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then a story about Habil and Qabil, the first two sons of Adam alayhi salam, is talked about. And the Sharia, in the Sharia of Adam, because Adam and Hawa were the only two people, the husband and wife on earth, and the whole humanity has to come out from them. So their Shariat was different, and every prophet has a different Shariat. And Shariat, the Deen was the same, the Shariat is different. Deen means the set of belief and aqaid. The main sets of the fundamental belief and aqaid is called Deen. And this is called the usul or asal, which means the bark of the tree that is holding everything. And the commandments which control or which dictate what actions one should take, how one should live on life, those are called in Shariat and Islamic terminology, though in Arabic they call furu, branches. So the bark is called the asal or usul, and the branches are called the furu or furu'at. So though they rest on the aqaid, if actions are very good, but the aqaid is not there, the foundation is not there, it's all baseless. It's not going to help. Okay. But if the action or the aqaid are correct and the actions are wrong, then there is a chance a person will enter into Jannah after serving punishment or so. So the Shariat of and Shariat is a set of commands how to live one's life. The Shariat of Adam alayhi salam, what happened was he used the Hawa alayhi salam, she used to give birth to pairs or twins at a time, and among those twins, one would be a boy, one would be the girl. And so every time she had a delivery, a twin was born with a boy and a girl in it. And in their Shariat, those twins were considered as brothers and sisters. All right. And so if a twin is born first, and then after that another twin is born, a boy and girl, and then another boy and girl, then those twins are brothers and sisters. They cannot marry with each other, but across the twins they can marry. So the first, a boy from the first twins can marry a girl from the second twins, and that was the Shariat of Adam alayhi salam. In our Shariat, that's not no more longer the case. Any number of children born from a single woman are considered all brothers and sisters. So that was the case, and it happened that the first one born was, I think he was Habil, and his sister, and then born Qabil and his sister. And Qabil was the boy, and Habil was the boy. And it happened that Qabil's sister was very beautiful, and Habil's sister was not so beautiful. And then, so the nikah had to be taken between the sister of Habil and Qabil, and the sister of Qabil and Habil. And so Qabil retaliated and says, my sister is the girl born with me is more beautiful than the girl born with Habil, and I want to marry the girl that was born with me. I don't want to marry the girl that was born with Habil because she's not that pretty. And I'm told that's haram. This is haram. It cannot be. And then, but he didn't accept. And so eventually he says, okay, you both do a sacrifice, present a sacrifice for Allah, slaughter an animal and present it to Allah and see whose sacrifice is accepted, and then decision can be made on that. And so they each sacrifice. And at that time, the acceptance of sacrificial acceptance was made by Allah in the form of a fire that would come down from the heavens and would burn the sacrifice, and whosoever sacrifice would get burned. That means his sacrifice was accepted. And so they both sacrificed, and Habil's sacrifice got burned by the fire and accepted by Allah, while Qabil was left behind, not accepted. But he violated, still retaliated, and rebelled. And then he said to Habil, I'm going to kill you. And Habil said, if you want to kill me, go ahead. I'm not going to retaliate against that. You will eventually bear all my sins because you are killing me unjustly. And so Qabil didn't know how to kill because nobody murdered before. They were among the first people. And so Shaitan came in the form of um, in the form of a person, and he took a big rock, a piece of big stone, and hit an animal's head with that, and demonstrated Qabil how to kill. And Qabil used the same strategy and killed Habil. And then after that, he was confused what to do with the body. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent two crows who landed in front of Qabil, and they fought with each other, and one of the crow killed the other. And then the crow the crow that was left alive, he dug a hole in the ground in front of Qabil to demonstrate, and then he pushed the body in there, and then put the dust back up again. And that's how Qabil learned what to do, and he did the same thing, and he was sorry after whatever he did. And it's said that the tafsir Mufassirin, they say it comes in a hadith that that was the first murder committed on earth, and any murder, because he set a precedence, and any murder committed till the day of Qiyamah, his a part of its sin will also go to Qabil's books of account, because he set up the precedent for that. And by the way, if it's easy to forget among between the Habil and Qabil who murdered whom, because they're very similar rhyming names. So it's easy if a trick is Habil's name start with Ha, but Qabil's name start with Qa. And Qa also begins the word Qatil. So Qabil is Qatil. So they both have the Qatil means murder, one who kills. So Qatil and Qabil have the Qa, starts both with Qa. And so this is how you can remember that who was the murderer and who was the murdered one. And then Allah subhanahu talks about the hudud, the punishment for the looters and the dacoits, and they're if they're caught, then the alternate the hand one hand right hand and the left foot left leg should be cut, or the left hand arm or the right leg needs to be cut. And this is one of the punishments, and there are other punishments as well uh, for them. And another ruling about them is if a dacoit because they come with weapons, and they not only there's a difference between dacoits, looters, and difference between thieves. A thief generally don't harm people's lives. They don't kill. They come and they secretly try to steal things, and they run away. They don't expose themselves. While looters and dacoits, they come with weapons. They don't secretly take things. They openly come. They threaten people using their weapons, and they even end up killing people. Okay, a lot of the times. So the ruling for thief is just the chopping of the hand if he's caught and proved. while for dacoits, they have to be killed. Okay. And if a dacoit or if a looter is killed as a punishment, or even during the fight with police or armed forces, then it's not permissible to pray Salatul Janazah for that dacoit or looter, no matter if he's a Muslim or not. It's because the Salatul Janazah is an honor given to Muslim, and there are still, if the dacoit or looter's belief is correct, he will still be a Muslim, he or she. But still, as a punishment, it's not allowed to pray Salatul Janazah on them. So if we find out, if we hear about certain janazah, that this is a janazah of someone who was a dacoit and he was killed in that while fighting with the police or armed forces or whatever, or while fighting with the people, they're trying to protect their wealth, then we are not allowed to participate in his janazah. No, the janazah should not even be conducted. And then it talks about that chopping off the hand of the thief. وَالسَّارِقُ وَالسَّارِقَةُ فَاقْطَعُوا أَيْدِيَهُمَا. And then again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Jews and how they modified the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the tahrif of the deen, modification of the deen of Allah and the book. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again says, so this thing, look, since we started from Surah Al-Baqarah, again and again we are seeing verses in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is constantly reminding us about the nature of Yahud and Nasara, the Western nations. In short, I can call them Western nations of today. Whether they are, all of them are Yahud, or whether they are not really following Nasara or Christianity or Judaism, it's out of the topic. But they're still, you can consider that to be as Western nations of today, no matter what deen they're following. Okay, well, even if they're not following anything, but because they are being used and manipulated by the Yehud and Nasara, even if they are not directly following. You think the president of USA or the president of Canada or the president of Australia or UK or Europe or other countries, you think they are independent? No, they are not independent. These days, you cannot consider, it's not muluk, it's not kingship, that a king is independent of making decisions. They're all bound. They're bound by the parliaments. They're bound by their deep state, the military behind them. There are so many other forces behind. They're just the dummies. Okay, the president of all of these countries, they're only a puppet in front of you, and really driving them, or most governments today are Jews behind them actually. Okay, they may be very small in number, but they're very cunning, and they plot, and they're very plotty. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, look, they don't make them friends. They can never be your friends. This is a key principle for international relationships, and also in our personal lives as well. Cannot rely on these things, on these people, and cannot rely on any non-Muslim at all. And unfortunately, there are so many Muslim rulers that have become the agents of Yahud and Nasara. And then so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the 4 characteristics of mu'mineen. Okay, and one of them is yuhibbuhum wa yuhibbunahu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves them and they love Allah. This is one characteristic. Azillatin ala al-mu'minin, a'izzatin ala al-kafirin. That they will be soft on mu'minin, will be those. One of the second characteristic of mu'minin, that they are soft on their fellow mu'min, and they are hard on the kafirin. And when we say hard on kafirin, means those kafir that are damaging the deen. Okay, then and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's order for them is to be hard on them, and so they follow the command and be hard on them. So not on all kafir. It doesn't mean that we start being rude to, when we are living with non-believers, and we start being rude to them. That's not what it says. But when the time comes, when the order of Allah, for the scenario for which Allah says be hard on them because they're damaging the deen of Allah, then they follow the commandments, and then they are hard on the kafir. and they are soft on their fellow Muslims. The third characteristic is وَجَاهِدُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, that they make jihad or qital, that's fighting in the battlefield for the sake of Allah. وَلَا يَخَافُونَ لَوْمَةَ لَائِمٍ, and then they are not afraid of anybody's comments. Today, a lot of Muslims, when we give them da'wah and we invite them to follow the sunnah of Rasulullah SAW, invite them to, um, for example, in our social activities, we are violating the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala openly. We are violating the sunnah of Rasulullah SAW openly going against the teachings of Rasulullah SAW. For example, our marriage celebrations are so much uh, infiltrated by Hindu traditions and lacking the Islamic touch. Our marriages are like Hindu marriages these days, and so much money is wasted on these things, which is haram. It is israf. And so when we invite people and we counsel people to stay away from it, what one of the arguments we get is, what will people say to us? Or our relatives are gonna criticize us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the characteristics of mu'mineen that Allah is describing, they're not afraid of other people's criticism. When they find out the order of Allah or the practice of Rasulullah, the Sunnah of Rasulullah, they are not afraid to follow it because people will criticize them. They don't care about that. And this is our characteristics. Remember that. We need to be strong in this thing. Okay? We cannot indulge in haram. We cannot indulge in bid'ah. We cannot indulge in sinful activities just because what will people say? And people are going to criticize and people are going to make fun and this and that. Doesn't make a hell of a difference. Nothing. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't befriend those people that make fun of the deen. So in any gathering, if we are there and we find that people are making fun of the deen and fun of ulama, making fun of ulama is in fact making fun of the deen, because they are the protectors of the deen. They are the ones who have dedicated their lives to protect the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in that case, what do? Well, we talk about it. We counsel the people. We are not allowed to be quiet at that time. And when we find that, if we find that we don't have the courage to do that, or there's just too many and whatever, then you're not allowed to sit in that gathering. Okay. So, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they're not all Jews and not all Christians are like that. There are some in them that are very soft-hearted, and when they listen to the da'wah, their heart says to them that the Quran is haqq. And this is talking about the Christians of the Habasha when the Muslims migrated there, when they listened to the Quran recited by Hazrat Jafar Tayyar radiallahu anhu, who was there with the Muslims. When he read portions of Surah Maryam to them, the Christians, when they listened, they realized, along with the king Najashi, they realized this is haqq. And they started crying and weeping. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testifying for them. And then Allah talks about the penalty on breaking your commitment and promise and vows, and that is either you uh, feed 10 needy people, or you clothe them, or if you have a slave, you liberate them. If you have nothing, then you keep 3 consecutive fasts, and they have to be 3 consecutive one. If you miss even one, you have to start again, the count again. And then the prohibition of alcohol and other things, gambling and all of these things are in there. And then Allah talks about penalty of killing or hunting someone, something, some creature, the animal, while in ihram. And this finishes our Surah Al-Ma'idah. Again, the highlights, as I presented at the beginning, that it talks about social, political, economic issues of Muslims, fulfillment and violation of promises, issues related to the slaughter of the meat and marriage with Ahl al-Kitab, and some of the hudud of Islamic punishments which are called hudud, and the story of Habil and Qabil, and that finishes Surah Al-Ma'idah. Alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open our heart for it and give us the understanding and connect us to the right people and those people with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to associate with, the Ahlullah, the Awliya Allah, the Mashayikh. اللهم لك الحمد كما أنت والفضل والسلام على محمد كما أنت الوحي والبنات كما أنت فإنك أنت القادر المغفر اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم آتنا وأطيبنا وجعلنا سببا لمن اهتدى صلى الله تعالى على حبيب محمد وبارك وسلم آمين 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 يا رب العالمين.